Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 5 of my Industrial Revolution 3 playthrough. In this episode, we are going to make use of those intermediates that we now have in order to finally start manufacturing some useful machines, such as inserters and assemblers. Enjoy! And finally, we have everything we need to make the inserters. So how about we make the steam inserters first, because it can take the steam pipes directly from the steam pipe machine, and then it can make the long-handed inserters directly, and then the burner can just be after that, and all three of these use kind of the same components. And because we're making so much already, the only thing we actually need to put into the steam inserter is the tin rod. And although building a giant setup would quickly expand this, we can also expand it the dirty way, both literally and figuratively, by just doubling up the amount of machines that we have here. So that steam pipe is going to be in the way. Unfortunately, it's not really gonna fit either way, because it needs to, let's do this with an underground in there. So we have a bit of spaghetti of steam pipes, but they are connected now. Of course, we have more bricks to lay, and this is going to be an ongoing thing where we pick up bricks and we lay bricks. And it looks like I set these the wrong way, but there those go. I'm going to need an extra mining drill, but hopefully making it now is going to be a lot quicker. And because of the side of the belt that it's on, it technically works fine like this, but if we combine them like this, then it means it doesn't matter what side the tin ingots are on. It will be properly placed in the end. And there we go. Even if the machine is off, so long as it previously had a recipe attached to it, then we can use the rate calculator to figure things out. So if we select everything, it actually tells us the consumption of the inserters as well, but it gives us an idea that we need 0.7 coal a second, and our miner does technically more than that, but this also sucks stuff up, so it seems like that's pretty close to the limit of this miner, so we're probably going to want to have another one. Crafting times are definitely shorter now that we have at least some of these intermediates ready. Every little bit counts. And we have quite the copper output. And it's actually backing up now, so that is great to see. And eventually we probably will want to have automatic ways of getting rid of things like having ores in our inventory. But for now we can just kind of dump it into the machine and worry about automating that later. Because eventually we'll want these transfer plates to automate every single resource that we might find in our inventories just to keep it clean. But we have a nice backup of copper now. And it looks like all of those pipes are ready, so sure, we'll grab them. And we want to keep laying down bricks to make life easier. Well, right here is where we are making our build, so we probably want that to be paved. We also need some bricks to actually make machines, so we don't want to use all of them. So the next thing we were going to work on was making the steam inserters. And let's keep the crafting going, because pretty much want it to go at full blast as long as you can, because you are kind of limited on it for quite a bit of the early game, but we're getting to the point here where it's not going to be a limiting factor. We need to do the steam inserter here. It's actually going to be pretty straightforward, where it's going to need tin rods. The two give us what we need, and technically it can be placed like this. Whether we actually want to place it like that or not, I guess we'll figure out. But let's pick it up, because we do want to position it in such a way where we can direct insert those pipes, so this is the lowest it can go while doing that. So sure, we'll do that. It does mean we kind of need to space all this out. So could we do it with long inserters? Actually, probably. Because we'd have long inserters there, and then long inserters there, which would jump all of the gaps. This would need to insert in, and then we would need another one to insert out. And since we're going to have another machine right next to this, we should probably put it right here with a pallet. And then right next door is going to be the long-handed machine. Let's just direct insert between the two, and then also insert onto a pallet. So the only thing this machine needs is also tin rods. Is one going to be enough? Nope, it needs to be two, which means it'll be the same, essentially, as this side. That's convenient. So what are we short on? A couple of long-hand inserters, a couple of short ones, but making these are actually really fast now because we have all of the base resources. So even though we're about to automate it, it's actually already pretty fast. I guess we might as well get ready and have steam inserter and long-handed inserter in there. So although this gets the rods in here, we also need to get the things we've been making, the pistons and the motors. And we potentially could do this with a long-handed inserter to save us having to underground over this, but we also just could. It's really not that big a deal. Fortunately though, it can't clear that gap. It would have to be here. So in effort of keeping things as straight as possible, maybe we should just do that. Each item we're going to need 0.625 of each, and the speed of a long-handed inserter is 2, so hopefully the long-handed would have enough performance to do all of that. It might not, but we will find out. And let's move this over further so we can grab everything we need, but there they go. Finally, automatically making inserters. Ah, feels nice. And that will help because inserters do go into some of these machines, like the steam assemblers, so that will save us even more time as it pertains to building those. However, we do use a lot of burner inserters, so we should automate that as well. It does not require steam or anything, it's just tin plates and rods. Let's just put it off to the side, and let's see how much faster this is now. Much faster. We're still making those small copper frames, which in themselves is a time sink, but man, this is so much faster. Looking all the way back here, yeah, production seems good. Okay, let's do 2 machines. One is tin plates, and one of them is tin rods, and both of those come from ingots, so if that is enough, it would be fine, but it's not enough. But because we have to double stack one of them, we might as well double stack both of them, since in the end it kind of doesn't matter because we have to do it with both of them. And because of that, let's push them together, because we will need to split them apart, at least to there. But other than that, that's what we need. So we need to line this up. You could line it up down here too. It would work fine. And we might as well just to keep the spacing nice and consistent. And there's only one gap separating these, so I kind of feel like they should be connected if it's only one space like that. Seems a little weird not to fill it in. And in they go. Can't reach, but oh, I was hoping the robots could too, but they can't. It's kind of funny listening to all this noise and seeing all this steam and stuff, but none of these machines make any pollution. You see here, pollution is 0 in this chunk. Okay, that's another item. So let's do burner inserters for our request. And looking good. This covers everything. Of course, copper is actually starting to run a little slow again. But have we automated enough to do our build? I don't know. We'd have to make 8 steam crushers and 4 burner drills. Well, 2 more, I suppose, but the 8 steam crushers, that would require copper gears, but specifically the large copper frames. I kind of feel like I want to automate that stuff. Looking at what copper pistons go into, there are more things that we would want to automate with them. And out of all of the things we'd want to make right now, because we don't necessarily want to make every little thing, because it would just be a lot of resources stuck in buffers. So we definitely want to make basic engines, and we probably definitely want to make the small steam assemblers. The basic engines we could easily make with what we have, and the steam assembler would require the small copper frames, so that is an additional component we'd probably want to make basically now. I guess it depends. But what about those motors? We want to orient this in such a way where the least amount of materials are traveling down the line to try to keep it as simple as possible. So the basic motors also go into that steam assembler. Turrets, I mean, we kind of need turrets, but also we can kind of just make them on hand. They're not that important. Same with most of this stuff, really. The only other thing it would go into is the basic rotor unit, which requires those small frames. And then the rotor unit is an interesting item. It's basically used in robots and scatterbots. And the scatterbot is a combat robot with a shotgun. We only have so much space for belts, and we have potentially 5 complex items we'd want to push down the line. It's kind of funny. We're making a huge buffer of resources now, but after spending so long manufacturing like a single steam inserter which would have taken 15 seconds before. Now we have 100 of them, and it's no big deal. So that's the power of automation. It just takes a little while to get there, but it also feels really good when you do get there. Okay, let's put an assembler in here. Let's make the small copper frame, which is copper plates and rivets. It looks to be an expensive item here, so let's try 2 plates, and that is the correct number. And now we need 1 for rivets, and hopefully that's correct so we don't have to double them up. Awesome. And then to make the rivets, we need to make the rod. It's nice having the inserters on hand now, so actually planning this build out is quite quick. So the other 2 things we were going to make with these frames, one was the rotor, and the other is the small steam assembler. Since the rotors are going to go into other things and the steam assemblers are not, let's do the steam assemblers first. And we will want to keep some of these small frames on hand because they might go into things like steam stackers or roboports, so we still want to keep them in our inventory for any handcrafting we might want to do. It's just, it's not going to be very much handcrafting at the end of the day, which is totally fine. Okay, but now we're finally automating something significant, a small steam assembler. And we have all of those things automated now, so actually making this is incredibly simple because it's all using basically complex materials, although it is also using steam pipes though. So we are going to want to put those pipes in, and I don't know if it's going to be close enough to where we can just put a belt there. I mean, we could, but it would be annoying. But also, how complicated would it be to just do our own machine? Simply because we've already designed a setup to make these pipes, so we probably don't want to do it in any other way. Plus, we are taking advantage of the fact that there are no items that need to go into the small assembler. And it would be basically something like this, but we'd want to space it out in such a way for things to be kind of lined up. Let's just pretend we move it all of the way down, where we can put 1 there, 1 there, and then we can use a pallet to get them into this machine and another pallet to get them out of the machine. And we do want to make sure all these stay connected, so let's move this to the other side so all of the pipes will line up. I guess it doesn't really matter because there'll be pipes on both sides, but let's just move them anyway so it works with this particular build. And it's actually quite symmetrical. Okay, the other copper frame item we wanted to make was the rotor. If you want to skip the rotor, you can. It doesn't really go into that much stuff, but if you ever wanted to make a bunch of, say, scatterbots, then you would definitely want to have these rotors on hand. So it's not a critically important thing to make, but it will save you a little bit of time handcrafting certain things, so we might as well. This is Factorio after all. The whole point of Factorio is you automate everything, so let's do that. This machine just requires copper plates in addition to those other items. We can try to make it symmetrical with this other side, but that might be hard to do considering all it needs is a little bit of copper plates, and the 1 machine is enough. So we could space it out by 3 spaces by using a long-handed inserter on each side. So the furthest we could move it down without having any belts in here is this. And that seems fine, because we can do direct insertion for this machine, insert it out onto the pallet, which we now have run out of, and I guess we can connect these 2 pipes right there, and that will get us our rotors. Okay, I think we have another build, and that was a lot faster. Now that we have all of these items. And plopping it in here, we want to try to line it up. We could put it 1 space down if we really wanted to, but squeezing it up is definitely much better as far as keeping it as compressed as possible in here, which is a priority. We want to keep this line as long and as straight as possible, and unfortunately we're going to have to add an extra space into here if we want to be able to insert it on this top side, but we could do it on this side instead. It's kind of bad practice to be picking up items from turns like this, but it would work, and then we would have to do this again to get it to line up with that. So that looks a little funky, but it does keep the belt kind of straight here, which I think is a priority. And in doing that, the pipe doesn't line up for this machine, but it totally does for the other ones. So as long as the steam can get in here somewhere, it's fine. And I'm noticing that our steam is quite low. Let's check it all the way back here. Yeah, it's definitely running low because the steam derrick is down to 32 a second. So we are closely approaching that point of needing to make our own steam. Until we have basic motors, not much is going to happen. And we're not getting any simply because the copper is not there. But that's because the piston machines are in front, and that kind of shows you why you have to be careful that no particular build is super greedy with materials, because if they are, like in this case, they can actually consume 5 out of the 7.5 theoretical maximum output if we max this belt. In that sense, I probably put too many machines there, but at the same time, it would be unfortunate if we didn't have enough pistons and then had to find a new place to put them. But as they fill up, the motors are making it through now. Of course, they're going to go into other machines first. It's so awesome being able to just walk on these pads and make sure our inventory is filled up all the way. And it looks like we are down to 90% of our copper patch and 91% of our tin patch. So they're going down more or less at the same rate, although our tin patch is much smaller. Well, we're still running short on copper here, so it seems like buffing this up is the next step, but going with our new plan of doing the crushed ores is probably a little optimistic because these machines are so expensive and take so long. So for now, how about we try to expand our existing setup a little more? And I suppose at this time, making drills is not that big a deal, so we can grab that. So now we're using all of the materials that the game started us with. And let's see here, how about we put these miners on the other side, and then that will allow us to jump sides and make sure that the copper goes on the correct side of the belt. It's a lot nicer having this stuff in our inventory now. So that gets us a little bit. We could move these machines around, but honestly, we're probably just about to do that anyway. So we probably can just leave these where they are and just sort of patch something in down here, because I'm guessing these machines are not long for the world anyway. We can kind of just push all this in here. I don't think our throughput rate's going to be high enough for it to really matter. Part of the reason why our steam is lasting so long is because we're intentionally using these burners when they are appropriate to save on steam, and it adds up after a while. So it's up to you. If you'd rather save coal, then use the steam inserters, but if you'd rather save pollution, then you're better off using the burners. Either way, eventually they'll all be replaced with electric versions anyway, and it won't matter. But that is still some amount of time ahead of where we're at right now. And yeah, I messed this up here. That even after doing that, it's still on the wrong side. So we're going to have to start making things very messy here, where the output on the right will be the copper, and then the one on the left is the coal, and then they can go around. So that will flip the sides and keep everything lined up for this. Yeah, it looks pretty funny, but it works. And at this stage of the game, that's kind of all we care about. And we have some copper in our inventory. We certainly could do a transfer plate to put those on this belt, but I figure we can handle that when we rebuild this to work on the crushed ore instead. But there we go. Now we have doubled our output again. And how much do we have? 5. So we're actually quite close to maxing out the belt here. Strangely enough, these machines aren't running at all, and they really should be, so what isn't being transferred over? I didn't update them, because it doesn't need to have this plate machine in the middle here. Let's get that in there, and we need to have these pipes be connected as well to keep everything flowing. There we go, that was hurting a little bit, but there really wasn't enough copper for it anyway, so it kinda didn't matter. However, one thing we are starting to get are these small copper frames. So let's put it on our list for now, and we'll sort it later when we've actually got all this stuff in here. But small copper frames. We also want to request these small copper frames. And we've got a couple of them, not many, but now we actually have everything in our inventory to make small steam assemblers without any intermediates, so we can make them very quickly. Nonetheless though, this setup is actually going to manufacture them for us to where we won't have to worry about that. So they are going at full blast now, and we have a small supply of them. So I suppose we can hook it up and see what happens here. It operated very briefly, but it also needs its own copper, and since that is unavailable because this is all filling up, it didn't get very far. However, what it did give us are a couple of rotors and a couple of steam assemblers. So this is a couple more things we'll want to have on our list. Want to have rotors, which will plop into there. And of course, we want to have the small steam assemblers. And now we're grabbing those as well. And the motors, basically the only thing it might go into that we want to make a lot of is the scattergun turrets, but at the same time, we don't have to use a belt for everything. We could do the drive-by logistics of pick up some items from one of these plates and then drop it down further down here and have those make an item. So we don't exclusively have to make everything directly on a belt like this. So what that means is the last thing that we need either of these for is the basic engine. And hey, look at that, we're actually backing up on copper now. So we absolutely have a sufficient output for this. Although, looking at the steam amounts, it's very low. It's essentially gone. That could influence why this is running slow, is because steam assembles things, but it does not go into making the ingots. And, oh yeah, it's gone. That means we need to make some of our own. And we do that with an offshore pump, which has a copper variety, and then a copper boiler as well. And we do have a tiny area to put them, so let's just plop them here for now, so we can look at the numbers and we'll figure out a build later. But this is much slower than the regular pump. It only puts out 480 a second. And the boilers are really weird. They're basically torpedo furnaces, where they awkwardly go sideways, where water goes in one side, and then the steam comes out the other, but you still have to get the fuel in here somehow. And you could either do it with a steam inserter and awkwardly kind of have to deal with where the pipe would be, because it can't go like this and it can't go like that. Or we can do it with a burner inserter, which is also a legitimate way of doing it, but the same problem applies. But as far as ratios are concerned, it consumes 30 water and makes 30 steam. So for now, how about we build 2 of them, which would completely replace the steam derrick in its prime. And the water can come from anywhere, but we do want to create a pattern that works well. And if we did it like this, I think it would be prettier, because then we can see the glow coming out of the furnace. So let's see if we can just do a design that has them pointed to the side. And it's not very dense, but probably the best way to do this is to have a belt going straight down the middle like this. And then you can use a burner inserter somewhere, could be in the middle or on the sides, to insert the fuel in. This is a good place to use the short pipes, where we would have that go through. And also, we now need to have the water pipes on here too. We don't need enough water pipes to manufacture them, I don't think. It is kind of annoying, but I think we can just kind of make these by hand. We still can automate the manufacturing of these minor resources that go into them to make handcrafting them faster. But the actual water pipes, they do go into a few things, but nothing really noteworthy. Nonetheless, we do need to have them on our list. And once you get higher tiers of pipes, you will get access to a pipe that can handle both steam and water at the same time, and you won't have to deal with having these separate pipes for everything. So don't worry too much about that. This is just a steam age issue you might have. So that's basically it. We'll just have our short little underground in there, and then however the belt gets in here, and then if we need more of them, we can just kind of place them like this, and it looks really awkward because the boilers are so small, but the amount of space you need is substantial to make the steam. But that is essentially how it would be. Since we have a little bit of water here, I suppose we should just take advantage of it and use it. After all, we also have coal right here too, but the coal belt is going down to the side, so we would have to have a separate coal belt going up, and it wouldn't be connected to anything else. So I don't know, maybe we should go up after all, especially considering we are splitting the coal right here. So we could split some more off if we need it. And we'll need to place this somewhere, put the water pipes closer to where the water is being supplied. How about up there? And then we have an offshore pump, but I kind of want it to be lined up if at all possible. And maybe spaced a little bit too. And let's use a short pipe. And there we go, it has a cool operating graphic too, but it only operated for like a second, so we barely saw it. But we can send a belt in. And how about we move these inserters back, just so the glow of the furnace is a little easier to see. There we go, and up here we probably will want to have some torches for nighttime, so let's just put some down now while I'm thinking about it. So in goes the fuel. And they have their neat furnace glow to them. and that very steampunky moving wheels, but it's making steam. And then we kind of need to hook it back up in such a way that makes sense for the logic. That probably means hooking it up to this pipe right here. So we're going to have to use up some of our area right here that we were using to figure out builds, but what can you do? Let's use the pipe visualizer mod just to make sure that everything is connected, and I suppose for such early game we actually have quite a few pipes going on here, and that's an interesting way of visualizing how all of these steam inserters are connected. But they are. And now you can see that the number is totally going up. However, we don't want it to fill up all the way because we would ideally use the steam from the steam derrick since it is technically free and unlimited. So let's actually move this one back and also make another steam tank to help with the logic and a steam valve. The valve will point towards the rest of the factory and do Shift E to set that to top up, so that will get it to 80%. And it might be a little better if that was actually first. And then the next item kind of covers up the valve a little bit, but it's in there. And this will help. Having a large amount of steam in this one area will help the valve operate a little more efficiently and get the level closer to 80%. But now by doing that, this will give priority to the steam derrick and allow it to fill up the system as much as it can. And if we need more steam, we'll build more boilers. And this is very much going still. It's just we need to make a whole bunch of assemblers, and look at that, we already have 50 of them. We have more assemblers, then we know what to do with, at least the small ones. We certainly use the small ones in large quantities, so it is something to keep on hand here. And that's the end of this episode. On the next one, we're going to work on the more difficult intermediate components, which will finally allow us to quickly craft the expensive machines, such as miners and the ore crushers. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.